Alright, today we are going to be working on a 2013 F-150. This is our project for now. Going to be swapping out our turbos. So, got the inner fender well out. Had to take the fender flare off in order to access some of the bolts that run along this inside edge here. So now that we got that off, I think what we're going to do is we're going to put her up on jack stand, get this wheel off, give us some more space to get in here and start working on that. Right off the bat, we'll see what we can get done today. I didn't bring all my tools because I didn't know exactly what we'd need, but it looks like we need some big torques. So I don't know if I've got those with me, but we'll see what we can do, what we can get done, and just take it one step at a time and get her out and get the new one in. Here's our new turbo. That's going to go in its place. She's got a little bit of oil on her. Probably from testing, just what was left in it. Yeah, I don't really know much about these. My brother ordered them. It's for his and my sister-in-law's truck. So that is what we're going to do. This is our passenger side. That's our driver's side. We're going to replace both turbos. Also has a cat code, so we'll probably replace the cats as well. And then I think it also had an issue with the accelerator pedal signal. So we might also do that. I don't know the exact codes. My brother has them, and he's out of town right now. So they're a little busy, so I offered to help them out. So here we go. Quick note, these Ford lug nuts, love-hate relationship. Love the pretty caps when they're nice, but it's like a aluminum chrome cap something, and it will twist on the nut underneath, and you end up with these weird misshapen caps. And so you get your proper size lug nut on there. Dead blow works great because then you don't round off your socket. Bust it loose with your impact, and then at least on these wheels there's this great little spot right here. You can use your pry bar here and pry your sockets back off of your lug nuts just like that. Just like that. She's loose. So, quick little trick with Ford lug nuts. Those three were the pain in the ass. These three look good, so I don't think we'll have that problem. But now you know. All right, with the inner fender liner out and the wheel off, we now have actually quite a lot of space to get in here and work. Now, I do still have my floor jack under the truck, but always be safe. Have yourself a jack stand as well. And then a good test is make sure everything's seated flat on the ground, no legs are coming up, jack isn't bent, wheels coming off the ground, so like that one right there. Not the greatest sign, but the jack also is not holding very much weight. This is, so I might reset that. But always better to be safe than sorry, because all it takes is one time for a vehicle to fall on you, and it's not a good day. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into the turbo now. If you find yourself like me struggling to get that fitting loose right there on the side of the turbo for the oiling, there is this little clip right here, and it sits right around here. Let's see, sits right there. So you get your pick tool in there, pull that out, and you can pull your line out and actually take that fitting out. But once that's out, I don't even know if you need to take that fitting out. Those are a pain. That's a pain. That line has to come out in order, or at least get loosened to get that top bolt out. I do have a Torx that fit it, but it's not an impact rated Torx, and I'm nervous I'm going to break it. So we'll see how far we get today. And I apologize, that's not an oil feed line. That's a coolant line. Now that that's loose, I can actually access that bolt there. You're supposed to actually drain the coolant before you do this process, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and switch gears and do that real quick. Whoops, my mistake. Maybe try to avoid making my mistakes so that way yours goes a little bit easier. But yep, there's that. The turbo on this 3.5 Ecoboost, a little bit of a challenge, but not too bad. One thing, especially if you're going to do both turbos, or you have to do your cats, which is the case here. So this passenger turbo, the seals failed and started sending oil down. The cat ended up chewing up the cat. That's why we're replacing the turbos, but the cats also have to come out. Personal opinion, it's probably easier to take the cats out anyways to get to the turbos. I haven't actually gone through a removal procedure from Ford or anything like that, so that might actually be their recommendation anyways. Regardless, we're going to take the cats out. Now, you've got your coolant line on top here, and then you got another one on the back there, and then obviously your oil line here for the turbo. 3 T50s, and then it's 2 T45s Torx on the oil lines. These coolant lines have these little snap rings on them, and those lines just pop out. But make sure you get your line out of the turbo on the backside, otherwise she will fight you and not let go. Now, additionally, at least on this passenger side, we haven't got to the driver's side yet. It's kind of hard to see in there, but I don't know that we had to take the starter out, but it was totally worth it. Don't try to make your life that much worse by being a total pain. Also, we had our air inlet lines. There's 2 of them that come down here. The one pops in there, and the other one pops in right there. You can see this one that is still here pops in right there. With those lines, the one that was popped in right there actually came out real easy, and it's just sitting up there. This one was flexible enough that I popped it out of there and moved it out of the way, and it's perfectly out of the way, so I didn't even mess with it any further. We haven't got to the driver's side yet, but on the catalytic converter, first off, the starter was simple enough. It's just 2 bolts that go in. One's there, and then one's just up there, and that's those bolts right there. And I didn't even take the starter out. I just kind of set it down on the skid plate just to get it out of the way. For me, it was easier to actually disconnect the starter and then flip it around to disconnect the wires. So battery cable is definitely undone. Undid the exhaust here. The cats are actually tied together on this Y pipe right here. Disconnected this cat from the turbo, disconnected the exhaust back there, loosened that up so that way we'll actually be able to break the cat off of the Y pipe and have 2 separate pieces. That cat has already been disconnected from the turbo up there. It's a little tight in here, so trying to get it out of these rubber grommets is probably going to be a total pain. On this side, you've got 2 15mm bolts that I'm going to take those out, and then I'll drop that bracket out. And then over here on this side is just 1 15mm bolt, and that bracket comes off, and that'll drop out that side, and this whole Y pipe should come out nice and simple. So once we get the cats out fully, then we'll go ahead and start the driver's side disassembly process to get that turbo out, and then we'll get new gaskets and all of that stuff to put the new turbos in. One note I was going to make is it's a little tight in here with this driveline, so my next step is actually I'm going to take this driveline out. I have not looked at a service procedure. I think these are 10mm bolts, but I don't know that it's going to actually be very possible to do this work without dropping the driveline out. Either way, it's simple. It's like what is that, 6 bolts on the rear, I think 6 on the front. Yeah, it looks like 6 up there too. And again, I think they're 10mm, but either way, it's 12 total bolts, and this whole driveline comes out, and then you've got a lot more space to work in here. I should have taken that out before trying to take the exhaust bracket off of the turbo up there, because that would have given me a lot more working space to get that section up there loosened up. But that's where we're at so far. Some of the fun of doing this stuff for the first time is learning, right? There is no way, it appears at least there's no way to get these cats out in this Y pipe without dropping that cross member. So I thought we'd get lucky, separate it over there, that cat from the Y pipe, and be able to get it, but there's not room. Our next step, got all the exhaust pipes disconnected and O2 sensors and all that stuff. Started taking these brackets off up here for the hangers, the exhaust hangers, and there's not enough room. So we're gonna go ahead and take out that cross member, which means skid plate over there's got to come off first, and then cross member, and this should just drop right out at that point. Just be aware of that if you're working on this project yourself. Got our cats down and out, as you can see. That was a little more of a challenging process than I expected it to be, but let me share with you the quick update. In order to get these out, that Y pipe goes right over that cross member, so the cross member has to come out. The cross member runs from right there, 2 bolts, to right here, these 2 bolts. In addition to that, you see our heat shroud right here, right at the end of my finger. There's a 10mm bolt that goes down into the top of the cross member, and then the same thing right here. Those are also attached to the cross member. And then right in the middle, you've got your transmission mount, that guy right there. And it's got 2 studs on the bottom, so you have to take those nuts off. So you've got a total of 8 nuts and bolts. So 6 bolts, 2 nuts. And then that cross member can drop down. Make sure you support your transmission. And then, because the way this is designed, your exhaust hangers are on this transmission mount. So then you'll take out these 2 bolts and those 2 bolts to get the transmission mount down, which is what holds onto these hangers here. So when you're ready to do that, just be careful. If the rest of your exhaust is loose, it will drop down on you, so don't let it fall on you. If you've got an extra set of hands, it's obviously easier. Make sure that you disconnect or remove your O2 sensors before you're ready to do this, so you don't yank on wires or bust an O2 sensor or something like that out. And that's going to be the easiest process to get these cats out. Now that we've got these out, it's a lot easier to get up in here to get this other turbo out. Due to time and light and the fact that it's starting to rain, we are going to wrap up on this for today and just come back to this probably tomorrow and get that turbo out tomorrow. As you can see, I might have already addressed this earlier in the video, but we also took out the drive line, which just makes this process so much easier. Get your drive line out first, and then you can do your exhaust up there, your cross member, and get this whole thing down and out. Make sure that you support your transmission also, so you don't have all that weight just hanging there unsuspended off of the back of the motor. I mean, I've done it before and it hasn't been a problem, but I don't like to. No need to put additional stress unnecessarily on any of these components, right? I mean, especially on a higher mileage vehicle, you've already got plenty of wear and tear. So one of the best tips I can recommend is good organization of all your nuts and bolts. So I like to, whenever possible, put my nuts and bolts back in where they were as I disassemble. So that way I don't ever have to go wondering where they're at or anything like that. There's also, I almost forgot, there's a skid plate that sits right here over the bottom of the T-case. So you'll take that off before you get to this cross member. Now that all that's out, we will start on the next part. So tomorrow we will get this side supported, jack stands, pull this wheel, inner fender well, and then the turbo is down in there. That's what's coming out tomorrow. And then we will get all of our new gaskets and everything else and put the new turbos in. And at that point, it's full reassembly. New cats, new turbos, testing, make sure everything's working properly. My brother, this is his truck, and he was saying that they also had a code for a accelerator pedal signal, something like that. So we're doing the obvious mechanical failures that we know first, put it all back together, and then we'll do our testing and verify that that's our only problems. We might also have some sensors that we have to take care of in this, and hopefully the battery's good. The truck's been sitting for a minute with a dead battery. I've had it on a trickle charger for the past 2 days, so with any luck it'll come back and it'll be fine, but might also have to be replacing the battery. It's part of the nature. Vehicle sits for a while and your battery sits at flat, dead, zero for a couple months, and that'll trash your battery. So if you don't know, if there's any recommendation I can offer, make sure your batteries don't go fully dead and sit there for an extended period of time. Lead acid batteries do not usually recover from that well. If you know your vehicle's going to be sitting for a while and you don't want to spend $80 to $300 on a battery, go invest in $20-$30 on a battery tender, and throw it on your battery when you know that your vehicle's going to be sitting for a little bit. It'll save you a lot of money down the road. Then you have a battery tender if you ever have to leave a vehicle parked for an extended period of time, and you know it's going to be good when you come back to it. The battery tenders, I mean, honestly, I think I've got 3 trickle chargers and a battery tender, and 2 of those trickle chargers are battery tender, so auto maintainer battery chargers. They're worth every penny in the long run if you've got any sort of automotive projects like this that sit for extended periods of time. That's the update for this project thus far. I don't know how well it comes through on the weather, or on the camera, but you can see the weather's starting to move in. It's starting to get a little dark. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here for today, and we'll come back to it tomorrow, get a little more work done. If I can offer any other advice in the field of mechanics and turning wrenches, patience is a virtue. You find yourself getting very frustrated. Something's not cooperating. You're getting mad. Take a break, walk away, step back for a few minutes, and then come back and take a look at it. 9 times out of 10, you will find another solution. Another big tip that I've learned over the years of turning wrenches: if you look at a situation that's like, oh man, I got to take this out and that out and this out, and I don't want to take all these things apart just to get to that one piece. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, 9 times out of 10, you're going to not only save yourself a lot of headache and heartache and pain and frustration by taking out those couple extra things, but it's going to go so much faster too. And I know, because I've been the victim of it so many times. You look at all these things in the way and it's like, man, I really don't want to do all of that. Seems like a lot of extra work. But I promise you, 99% of the time, it's not extra work. The extra work is when you try to work around it. Look at the situation, look at what's in the way, look at all the components. If you're worried about losing parts, pieces, stuff like that, have extra good organization, Ziploc baggies with labels on them, whatever. I know some guys that live by the Ziploc baggie and a Sharpie, and I've not really had that problem. I'm usually pretty good about remembering where things go, but I'm a very hands-on visual learner. When I have bigger projects where there's a lot of components out and about and all over the place, a lot of times I will, to save myself some headache down the road, I'll just put the nuts and bolts back into the components that they came out of, so that way I don't ever lose track of them. And good housekeeping is a lifesaver. Put your tools away at the end of the day. If you've got a handful of tools that you're using a bunch of them regularly, I mean, it's fine to have them in a pile in your workspace, but for the most part, keep a clean working space, and it'll make your life so much easier. One last thing, these little puzzle foam mat things, I think this one was at Harbor Freight for like $10 or $11, something like that. Lifesaver if you're turning wrenches on your back. If you're flat backing it, I recommend these 10 out of 10 every single time. I bought one set, the 4 pieces, and I almost refuse to do mechanic work without it anymore, because I've had so many days and times where you're laying on your back on a concrete ground and there's just little pebbles or dirt or whatever it is that you're laying against, and you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but then after a day or two or several, you've got bruises and like divots in your shoulders and stuff like that, and these are a total lifesaver. So 100% 10 out of 10 recommend. But with that, I think we're going to call this video here. So all the YouTube stuff, you want to follow along and see what's happening, like, subscribe, leave comments, tips, tricks, anything like that. I in no way am pretending like I know more than any of you guys. I'm just very mechanically inclined. I enjoy working on stuff and bringing it back to life. I go through the process and learn myself on every single job I ever do, even jobs that I've done multiple times. Usually I find I learn something, a tip, a trick, a faster way to do it, whatever. Just enjoy the process. Take your time, learn it, love it, and you just get better over time. So if you're working on something like this and it's frustrating the crap out of you, just be patient. Take a break, come back. It's okay if it doesn't go as fast and as smooth as you hope, because I can almost guarantee it won't. And that's the biggest stress relief trick I think I've ever learned in turning wrenches, is expect it to take 4 to 5 times longer than you think you can do it, and then the project will take multiple days if you think it's a day project. And if you plan for that, your project just becomes so much more enjoyable. Again, all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. Share the video if you liked it or you think somebody could benefit from it. And hopefully my journey helps you guys learn from my mistakes and learning process. or if you've got something like this, maybe I can help you save a bunch of time. Take care, guys. Love y'all. God bless. All right, we're back on the F-150 today. So it's been a few days. Finally got these turbos dressed up. Had a hell of a fight with these. Not so much the new ones, the old ones. Could not get these old studs off of the old turbos, and ended up just having to cut them off and grind them out to get the that lower flange off. You can see a little bit of marks there where might have nicked that flange a little bit, but otherwise didn't touch the flange when we were cutting and grinding. But here's our new turbo, all dressed up. Got our new coolant fittings on there, because those are a must. You definitely want to do those every time you do new turbos on this. New exhaust gaskets. I would also recommend new gaskets every time, all the way around. And then we've got one more gasket that is not on here, but will go on when we install it. That oiling gasket that sits on there. On the truck side, here's our upper coolant line for the driver's side turbo, obviously exhaust manifold, the lower coolant line, and then our oiling drip tube and pressure tube. So we've got pressure on one side and drip on the other. What we are doing, due to budget, is we are going to reuse these coolant lines. If you can afford to and you have the time, which, trust me, it's worth it if you don't want leaks and stuff to take the time. This is not a race if you want to do it right. I would replace both of these lines as well as the other two on the other side. On the passenger side, this rear line is probably a little bit easier to get in there and replace, and it's harder on the driver's side for that rear one. However, this front line on the driver's side is definitely easier, because on the passenger side here, you can follow this line straight back. That's our coolant line going back to this bracket right there. That bracket right there, you can see that bolt. What you can't really see is the angle in the space. There is about a finger's width worth of space between that. I believe it's a T45 and the compressor housing right there. So in order to get a bit into that bolt right there, you have to take the AC compressor off. This bad boy right there. In order to get that off, that's a whole different game. Partially because of budget, partially because of time. They're in a hurry to get this in. We're going to try to take our chances. But obviously, anytime you disturb these lines, you run in a risk that it will start leaking at the fittings. But in order to do this front fitting on the passenger side, AC compressor comes off, that bolt, and then that line can come out. I'd also replace the coolant fittings on the block on all 4 of those if you're going to do that. Sorry guys, I tried to get the camera down in here and there's just too much crap to get the camera down in here. But we've got our AC pump right here down there, and then there's the top of the pump, and I just can't get in, but just back in this little valley area right here is that bolt that I was just showing you from the side of the block with this AC compressor. So you can see we've got a serpentine belt on the front of the pulley, and then the AC compressor has its own belt. This particular setup, that is a stretch belt going over to the AC pump. So there's no pulleys or anything like that. It literally stretches onto the pulley and off of the pulley. You gotta basically feed it on as you rotate the motor. That's the extra fun in doing that coolant line. As much of a pain as it might seem like, it is absolutely worthwhile if you want to make sure that you have a full, proper repair to go through this pain, pull that compressor, and get that front line replaced. Because if you don't, then you run the risk of having gone through and replaced these turbos, and not all the problems are fixed, and now you have new coolant leaks. that is one of the main reasons why it's usually worthwhile to do the extra steps and the extra time now. Now, knowing our circumstances here, and that we are trying to kind of, I guess, cut corners, taking the extra time, and I would absolutely take the extra time if I were you, and clean all these fittings up, make sure there's no debris on them, get that. This fitting is not as important as this fitting on the passenger side. That's the one that seems to have more of a problem for failure, but just make sure they're cleaned up. You don't want to get debris and gunk down into the oil pan or into the oiling system, because that'll send it right into your turbo. So be careful when you clean this, but make sure this is smooth and you don't have any sort of debris that's going to mess with your gaskets. And then up here on the exhaust manifold, I've got this pretty well cleaned up. Feels pretty good. There's a little bit pitting and corrosion and stuff right here, so I might actually take my sandpaper and sanding block and kind of knock that down. Make sure we've got a nice flat surface for our new gaskets. Give us maximum potential of having a successful repair first time without having any exhaust leaks or anything. So we officially have a turbo in place. When you are putting the turbo back in, or rather taking it out, quick side note is before you get to these flange bolts right here, you will want to disconnect this to take it out. And before you put it back, you will not want to connect this up until this is torqued in. If you see, when this thing is down in place, it completely blocks access to this bolt. Disconnect your coolant line, get it out of the way for removal, and don't hook it up yet when you're reinstalling until after everything's in and torqued. Start with putting your turbo in. I would get these finger tight so that way the whole thing is loose and can move around. And the primary reason for that is to hook up the back coolant line. It is kind of a doozy. Let's take a look. We are now underneath, and you can see that back coolant line is kind of in a very inconvenient location for access. By keeping the entire turbo loose, you can kind of twist it and angle it just enough to get this fitting to line up and drop into place. It is at just the right angle that it does not want to go together very easily, so you need that to be loose in order to finagle it in easily without risking damaging the seal inside your new fitting inside there. Once that's in, then you can go ahead and get your oil return lines set up and torqued down. Before tightening down the flange bolts on the manifold, I would get your gasket in here and get these bolts in at least finger tight. I went ahead and torqued it up while it was still loose up there. I got them in finger tight, and then I went and tightened these down up here to snug, but still just finger tight essentially. Then I torqued this down, 89 inch-pounds, and then we went above and finished torquing up the exhaust manifold side. Once all of your connections are made and tightened down on the underside and backside of the turbo, then I would go ahead and torque this down up here. These are, the torque spec is 24 foot-pounds, and I just went around in a circle, and I started at 15 and then took it up to 20 and then went to 24, which is the torque spec, and then double and triple check the 24. I know it's not entirely necessary, but it's one of those squish type gaskets, so I just want to make sure that we had proper torque all the way around as that gasket compressed. So next step, I actually hooked up the vacuum line before throwing on the camera, but next step will be to get this coolant line in, make sure it's set and sealed, and then we'll finish connecting the turbo. We've got our covers on the inlet and the boost side of the turbo. We'll get those off and get our inlet and our boost tubes hooked up. And then after that, we'll do the same thing on the other side, and we get to hook up our exhaust afterwards, and she'll be back together. Quick side note, when you are putting these guys back together, be patient, take your time, and work them into place. Don't get overly forceful. A little tip or trick is if you take literally just a drop of oil and run it around that gasket inside or around the tube itself before dropping it into place. A lot of times those will slide into place easier. I think you can use a few different types of grease as well, but I've always just used like a drop of motor oil, and that will sometimes make this whole process glide together But the key is don't get frustrated and force it in, because if you damage the gasket inside that whole fitting's trash, unless you want to try to take it apart and put a new O-ring in it. But at that point, it's probably going to be easier to just replace the whole thing. All right, y'all, they're in. We fired it up, did a test run, and everything looks good. We have no leaks, no issues. Everything seemed to be as it was supposed to be. We haven't done a full heat cycle yet, so the coolant, we've still got a ways to top it off. But filled her up, let her bleed down, soak for an hour or so while I was working on other stuff, and then topped it off, fired it up, and this is where we're at so far. She's probably only had a grand total of like 3 or 4 minutes running, but that's through multiple cycles. Part of the reason why we did multiple cycles is because this passenger side turbo, the way it shipped, it was an utter mess. Completely covered in oil inside and outside, all the packing oil, testing, whatever, when they put it all together. So I wanted to make sure we burned it off before putting because we got a new set of cats on it. I wanted to make sure we burned off all of that and made sure we didn't have any other issues before proceeding. And so first cycle ran for a few seconds, second cycle a little bit longer, and then the last 2 cycles probably had a good minute or so each. And pretty much all the oil on the exterior is burnt off now, and we had no more oil coming out the exhaust port side. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this one good and ready. We never got up to full temperature, but it got warm, and it did not leak anywhere that we were able to see. So that is exactly what we wanted to see. Moving on to finishing the reassembly. Next steps, we got our O2 sensors, and that's actually our old cat over there, old exhaust system. You can kind of see the new system right there next to the part of the old one. So that's what's going to go on here. That's part of the reason we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have any issues with this turbo spitting oil down a brand new cat. And she looked good, so we're ready to move on. In order to take our next step, we've got to get the passenger side driveline back in here. And in order to do that, well, we don't have to actually drop this cross member out. But to get the Y pipe in, we do have to drop it out. So we're going to go ahead and drop that out because that gives us way more space to actually hook up the driveline on that side of the T-case. Right here, we've got this side of the cross member is loose. The bolt's just barely holding it up. We've got the T-case and transmission being supported by jack stand. The transmission mount is not only undone here, but it's also undone on the transmission. It's mostly just there to support it while we were kind of putting stuff together and taking it apart. Over here on the driver's side, you can see there's our front differential and there's our rear differential. So getting this cross member out of the way will make that whole thing a lot easier. So I've already prepped it to drop it. So we'll drop that out and get our drive line up there, and the rest should be pretty easy. Drive line is in and snugged up. So we're gonna go ahead and take our torque wrench here, handy dandy torque wrench, and make sure that we've got all of our bolts torqued down to the proper spec. Next, after that, we will go ahead and get our exhaust pipe, our Y pipe in and lined out. We'll get her kind of fitted loosely because it's an aftermarket pipe system. But one thing I actually wanted to show you was it makes a world of a difference if you just clean and prep your surfaces around the exhaust pipes. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is an aftermarket system that's affordable, we'll say. And you can see, if it'll focus, like, it doesn't have the greatest finish, but that doesn't look too bad, right? Well, that's because I prepped it. I took a piece of sandpaper and I cleaned up this whole edge because it was kind of rough. So let me show you the other one. So this is what that one looked like, and I don't know if the camera will bring it through, but there's, I don't know if it's like welding slag, but there's all these little chunks all over. And all it takes is one little tiny piece of debris to make it so that way your fit and finish does not fit together well. So while it's out of the vehicle, take a couple moments and prep all your fitting ends. Make sure they're all fitting well, cleaned up. Like this one, you can see is nice and clean. I got that one all taken care of. The turbo flanges on the truck are already prepped and cleaned. But like I was pointing out just a moment ago, this one is not. Before we get to reassembly, I'm going to take a minute and clean this edge up as well as that other pipe. Another quick side note, you're reusing hardware, old rusty bolts and stuff. What you might do is take a little bit of oil and run your threads in and out a few times to kind of clean them up. I like to keep around, I've got some leftover transmission fluid. This is actually all used. This is not new, but it's actually turned out to be such a great lubricant for things like this. Transmission fluid is kind of really high in detergents anyway, so instead of just tossing it, got a little bit that I use for all kinds of stuff like that. So after we get all of our pipes prepped and ready, we will begin the final steps of reassembly. Now, this is your transmission bracket, and it has the holders for part of your Y pipe that go across here. So that will probably, let's see, where are we? Okay, so there's our transmission mounting bracket holes. So we'll probably get everything loosely fit up here, all of our exhaust components and everything, just kind of finger tight and hanging where it belongs. And then we'll start to tighten it up, button it up, and then we'll finally finish off with this cross member and do our final torque procedure on everything and make sure it's all good. And then we'll do a test fire, and if everything looks good, we'll put all the plastics in and call this project done. So we've got our exhaust system all in place, and I'm pretty sure we've got it all good to go, got it all tightened down, all of our sensors are hooked up, O2s, and we're gonna fire it up and see if we have any noticeable exhaust leaks. If so, we'll address those before we finish putting everything back together. All right, we're all together. Check for leaks. Oh, we got a little one. Right there. So, check for other leaks and then make adjustments and see what we got before we finalize all of our stuff. Just rattle checking. It's all just stuff that's not hooked up, like that flange